The engine's death rattle echoed across the tarmac like a funeral dirge, each metallic wheeze counting down to mission failure. Commander Rene Vasquez stood beneath the wounded Blackhawk, her weathered hands tracing the fractured engine cowling while mechanics shook their heads in defeat. The bird had taken shrapnel over Kandahar 3 days prior, and now, with 18 hours until wheels up, it seemed their most critical extraction was grounded permanently. "Ma'am, we've tried everything." Senior Chief Martinez wiped grease from his knuckles, frustration bleeding through his professional facade. "The turbine shafts cracked, compression's shot to hell, and we don't have replacement parts for a bird this old." Around them, the hangar hummed with desperate activity as other crews prepped for Operation Nightfall, but Vasquez's team remained anchored to their dying aircraft. The mission parameters were unforgiving. Insert deep behind enemy lines, extract a compromised intelligence asset, and return before dawn broke over hostile territory. No backup helicopters, no second chances. The asset had been feeding critical information about terrorist networks for 2 years, and his cover was blown. Without this extraction, he'd be dead by sunrise, along with every lead they'd cultivated in the region. "Commander," a voice drifted from beneath the aircraft, barely audible above the hangar's mechanical symphony. Martinez glanced around, confused. The voice seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves, disembodied and strangely confident. "Permission to examine the engine assembly." Vasquez ducked lower, peering into the darkness beneath the helicopter's belly. There, wedged impossibly deep within the engine compartment, a figure emerged like smoke given form. Coveralls stained with years of hydraulic fluid, hair pulled back in a practical knot, and eyes that held the quiet intensity of someone who spoke fluently with machines. The technician moved with an almost supernatural grace, tools appearing and disappearing from pockets with practiced efficiency. "Who the hell are you?" Martinez demanded, but the figure was already elbow-deep in the engine's mechanical entrails, fingers dancing across components with surgical precision. No name tape visible, no rank insignia, just the focused concentration of someone reading the aircraft's mechanical language like poetry. "If you fix this engine," Vasquez called out, a laugh escaping despite the gravity of their situation, "I'll salute you first." It was meant as a joke, the kind of dark humor that kept warriors sane when everything crumbled around them. But as she watched this mysterious technician work, something in the air shifted. The death rattle quieted, tools clinked with purpose rather than desperation. And for the first time in 3 days, Commander Vasquez allowed herself to believe that perhaps their mission might survive the night, carried on wings that this invisible ghost was somehow coaxing back to life with nothing but determination and an almost mystical understanding of broken things. The technician's hands moved faster now, and the engine's labored breathing began to steady, each mechanical heartbeat growing stronger beneath the desert moon that would soon witness either salvation or catastrophe for 18 souls hanging in the balance. Within the mechanical maze of the Blackhawk's wounded heart, Chief Warrant Officer Kestrel Thorne worked with the fluid precision of a surgeon saving a life. Her calloused fingers traced fuel lines and hydraulic connections, reading the aircraft's distress like braille written in metal and heat. Around her, the hangar's chaos faded into white noise as she entered that sacred space where pilot and machine communicated in frequencies beyond human hearing. "Jesus," Martinez whispered, watching components that should have required hours of disassembly somehow becoming accessible through angles that defied mechanical logic. How did she even get in there? But Kestrel had always possessed an uncanny ability to find impossible spaces, to slip through cracks in reality where others saw only solid barriers. Her call sign had been earned over the skis of Afghanistan, where she'd kept damaged birds airborne through pure force of will and mechanical intuition. Kestrel, named for the small falcon that could hover motionless in hurricane winds, finding stability in chaos. Tonight, she channeled that same supernatural balance, her body contorted impossibly within the engine bay, while her mind calculated stress loads and thermal coefficients. "Compression's coming up," she called out, her voice muffled by steel and determination. The turbine shaft that had seemed beyond repair was somehow responding to her ministrations. Hairline fractures sealed with field-expedient patches that violated every manual but followed older laws of physics and faith. Commander Vasquez knelt beside the aircraft, watching in fascination as diagnostic readings on her tablet shifted from red to amber to cautious green. "Where did you learn this?" she asked, but Kestrel was already moving to the next crisis point, her hands dancing across damaged components with choreographed precision. "My father," Kestrel replied, not pausing in her work. "He could make any engine sing. Said machines have souls just like people. You hurt one, you apologize. You need one to perform beyond specifications, you ask nicely." Her voice carried the weight of childhood memories spent in dusty hangars, learning that aircraft weren't just collections of parts but living entities deserving respect and understanding. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years being overlooked, dismissed, relegated to the shadows while flashier pilots claimed glory and recognition. But here, in this moment, her invisibility had become her greatest asset. While others had given up, she'd found the path forward through patient observation and mechanical empathy. "Fuel flow's stabilizing," she announced, her voice gaining strength as the engine's vital signs improved. "Hydraulic pressure's holding. She's not pretty, but she'll fly." Around the hangar, other maintenance crews had stopped their work to watch this impossible resurrection, drawn by the growing harmony of mechanical systems finding their rhythm again. Martinez shook his head in disbelief. "Ma'am, we're looking at a minor miracle here. This bird was done, finished, headed for the scrap yard. But somehow—" He gestured helplessly at the diagnostic displays now showing green across the board. Kestrel emerged from the engine bay like a wraith materializing from shadow, her coveralls now bearing the baptismal stains of hydraulic fluid and jet fuel. In her eyes, Vasquez saw something that transcended mere mechanical skill, the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd just negotiated with death and won. The turbine shaft that had seemed beyond salvation now hummed with steady purpose, each rotation building toward the power needed to carry 18 souls through the darkness and bring them home alive. The invisible technician had indeed worked her magic, transforming despair into hope with nothing but determination and an almost mystical understanding of broken things. Commander Vasquez stood slowly, her warrior's instincts recognizing something profound in what she just witnessed. This wasn't just maintenance, it was resurrection, performed by someone who understood that sometimes salvation came not from the heavens above, but from the grease-stained angels working in the shadows below. "Prep for engine start," Vasquez ordered, her voice carrying new authority born of restored hope. Around them, the hangar erupted into organized chaos as crews scrambled to ready the resurrected Blackhawk for its most critical mission. But her eyes remained fixed on Kestrel, this mysterious technician who just redefined the boundaries of possible. The pre-flight checklist proceeded with mechanical precision, each system coming online like synapses firing in an awakening brain. Kestrel moved through her duties with quiet efficiency, her hands dancing across control panels with the same intuitive grace she displayed beneath the engine cowling. But as the rotors began their lazy rotation, building toward flight speed, whispers began circulating through the hangar like smoke. "You see her name tape?" Martinez asked his crew chief, both men straining to catch details about their mysterious savior. But Kestrel's coveralls revealed nothing, no rank, no unit designation, no identifying marks beyond the professional competence that radiated from her every movement. "Ghost," someone muttered, and the nickname stuck with superstitious certainty. In a profession where identity meant everything: call signs, unit patches, combat records etched in official citations, Kestrel existed in the spaces between recognition, valuable precisely because she remained unseen. The Blackhawk's engines reached flight idle, their harmonious whine testament to mechanical resurrection performed against impossible odds. Through the cockpit windows, Vasquez watched her crew complete final preparations, but her attention kept returning to the slight figure, moving with purposeful efficiency through post-maintenance procedures. "Ma'am," her co-pilot Lieutenant Davidson slid into the right seat, his young face tight with pre-mission tension. "Meteorology's reporting dust storms moving in from the northwest. We'll have maybe a 4-hour window before visibility drops to zero." The clock was ticking, and every minute of delay increased the chances their asset would be discovered and executed before dawn. Kestrel appeared at Vasquez's door, tablet in hand displaying post-repair diagnostics. "All systems green, Commander. She'll hold together for whatever you need." Her voice carried quiet confidence, the assurance of someone who just rebuilt an aircraft's heart with her own hands. "Chief," Vasquez said, using the informal address that acknowledged expertise over rank, "you riding with us?" It was partly invitation, partly test. Anyone who could resurrect dead machinery might prove invaluable when bullets started flying and systems failed under combat stress. For the first time, Kestrel smiled, not the professional courtesy of military bearing, but something genuine and slightly dangerous. "Wouldn't miss it, ma'am. Someone needs to listen to her complaints if she starts acting up over the target area." As they lifted off into the desert night, the Black Hawk rising from the tarmac like a mechanical phoenix, Vasquez felt a shift in her crew's energy. The impossible repair had become legend in real time, transforming routine mission preparation into something approaching myth. Her door gunners checked their weapons with renewed confidence, knowing their aircraft had been blessed by hands that understood the sacred relationship between pilot and machine. Below them, the lights of the forward operating base fell away into darkness, replaced by the vast emptiness of hostile territory stretching toward their target. But inside the aircraft, surrounded by the steady harmony of perfectly tuned engines, 18 souls flew with the quiet assurance that their mechanical savior had given them every possible advantage in the deadly game they were about to play. The night air flowed through open doors like liquid darkness, carrying scents of sand and distant violence. Ahead lay uncertainty, but behind them remained the miracle of resurrection, performed by invisible hands that had refused to accept the finality of mechanical death. 30 minutes into enemy airspace, the Black Hawk flew with ghostly silence through valleys carved by ancient rivers and modern warfare. Kestrel sat beside the crew chief's position, her ears tuned to the aircraft's mechanical symphony, listening for discordant notes that might herald system failure at the worst possible moment. The engine she'd resurrected hummed with steady confidence, its rebuilt heart pumping power through hydraulic arteries with mechanical precision. "Dust Devil at 2 o'clock, Davidson reported, his voice tight with concentration as he navigated around towering columns of sand that could blind sensors and choke engines. The landscape below resembled the surface of an alien world, all sharp shadows and desolate beauty illuminated by starlight and infrared imaging systems. Commander Vasquez monitored radio frequencies with one ear while tracking their progress toward the extraction point. Intel suggested their asset was hiding in a bombed-out compound 15 clicks from the nearest enemy patrol base, but intelligence had been wrong before. Too many variables, too many opportunities for disaster in a mission profile that demanded perfection from everyone involved. "Phoenix Base, this is Nightfall 1, she transmitted on encrypted channels, her voice carrying across hundreds of miles to reach the operations center managing their mission. "Inbound to target area, ETA 15 minutes. Request final intelligence update on hostile activity." Static filled her headset before the response crackled through. "Nightfall 1, Phoenix Base. Satellite imagery shows increased vehicle movement in your AO. Estimate squad-sized patrol elements conducting random sweeps. Asset remains in position but reports hearing engines approximately 1 click north of his hide site." The news tightened everyone's faces with professional concern. Random patrols meant unpredictable threats, enemies moving without recognizable patterns that might be anticipated and avoided. Worse, if their asset could hear engines, those same engines might mask the Blackhawks' approach until they were directly overhead and vulnerable. Kestrel leaned forward, studying the tactical display with eyes that saw patterns where others found only chaos. "Commander," she said quietly, "recommend we approach from the southeast. Terrain masking will keep us invisible until the last minute, and if there's a patrol to the north, they'll be looking the wrong direction when we pop up." Vasquez glanced at her navigation display, comparing Kestrel's suggestion with their planned route. The alternate approach would add precious minutes to their timeline, but it also offered concealment advantages that might prove crucial if things went sideways during the extraction. "Davidson, adjust course to heading 147. We're taking the scenic route." The co-pilot's hands moved across controls with practiced efficiency, banking the aircraft into a gentle turn that would bring them toward their target from an unexpected angle. Below them, the desert revealed its secrets through infrared imagery, the cooling tracks of vehicles that had passed hours earlier, the heat signatures of scattered buildings, the telltale straight lines of human construction interrupting natural terrain. Each detail fed into their tactical picture, building a three-dimensional understanding of threats and opportunities that would determine success or failure in the minutes ahead. "2 minutes to target," Davidson announced, his voice carrying the focused calm of someone approaching the moment when training met reality. Throughout the aircraft, weapon systems came online with electronic whispers, door gunners chambering rounds and checking fields of fire. Kestrel's hands found the crew chief's headset, plugging into the aircraft's communication system with familiar ease. If this mission succeeded, it would be because every system performed flawlessly when lives hung in the balance. And if systems failed, she'd be there to coax continued operation from mechanical hearts under the ultimate stress test of combat. The night sky stretched endlessly above them, stars wheeling in their ancient patterns while below, human dramas played out in the shadows between life and death. "Target building in sight," Vasquez announced, her voice cutting through the aircraft's mechanical chorus as she identified the bombed-out compound that sheltered their asset. Through night vision systems, the structure appeared as a collection of heat signatures and geometric shadows. Walls pockmarked by artillery strikes and roof lines collapsed into rubble-filled courtyards. Kestrel studied the tactical display with mechanical intuition, honed by years of reading landscapes through aircraft sensors. Something felt wrong. The infrared patterns didn't match intel descriptions, and vehicle tracks around the compound's perimeter suggested more recent activity than their briefings had indicated. "Hold position," she said quietly, her voice carrying enough authority to give Commander Vasquez pause. Years of experience had taught Kestrel to trust the subtle warnings that machines whispered to those who knew how to listen. The Blackhawk's sensors were painting a picture that didn't align with expectations, and in her world, such discrepancies often meant the difference between successful missions and memorial services. "Nightfall 1, this is Sparrow," crackled through their headsets, the asset's call sign barely audible above static and fear. "I'm hearing movement in the building next to mine. Multiple voices, adult males speaking local dialect. They're searching systematically, room by room." Vasquez felt ice form in her stomach. The extraction had just transformed from simple pickup to potential combat rescue, with their asset trapped between hunting enemies and the open ground necessary for helicopter operations. Every second of delay increased the chances of discovery and firefight. "Sparrow, can you move to alternate extraction point?" she transmitted, referencing contingency locations identified during mission planning. But even as she spoke, thermal imaging revealed new vehicle signatures approaching from multiple directions, their heat signatures stark against the cooling desert floor. "Negative," came the reply, Sparrow's voice tight with controlled panic. "They've got the whole area cordoned. I'm trapped in this building, maybe third floor, southeast corner. Can't move without being seen. Kestrel leaned over the tactical display, her finger tracing potential approach routes, while calculating risk factors with the cold precision of someone who'd learned to think like both pilot and machine. The compound's layout offered limited options. High walls channeled aircraft movement into predictable corridors where enemy fire could concentrate effectively. "There," she said, pointing to a narrow approach vector that used destroyed buildings for concealment while providing clear fields of fire for their door gunners. "We come in fast and low, flare hard behind that collapsed mosque, and put Sparrow's building between us and the search teams." Commander Vasquez studied the proposed route, her mind racing through tactical implications. It was aggressive, dangerous, requiring split-second timing and flawless execution from every crew member. But it was also their best chance of extracting Sparrow before enemy forces converged on his position. "Davidson, you see it?" she asked her co-pilot, watching him analyze the approach through his own tactical systems. His young face was pale but determined, understanding that the next few minutes would test every skill they'd developed through years of training. "Roger, ma'am. It's tight but doable. We'll have about 30 seconds on target before those patrol vehicles reach firing positions." His hands were already adjusting flight controls, preparing for the kind of precision flying that separated routine missions from legendary ones. "Door gunners, prep for suppressive fire on my command," Vasquez ordered, feeling the familiar pre-combat clarity settle over her consciousness like armor. Around her, the aircraft's crew moved with choreographed efficiency, each team member understanding their role in the deadly ballet about to unfold. The Blackhawk dropped toward the compound like a mechanical predator, its engines singing with the harmony of perfectly maintained systems, while 18 souls prepared to risk everything for one man trapped in the darkness below. The aircraft descended through layers of desert air, each foot of altitude bringing them closer to the lethal mathematics of small arms fire and rocket-propelled grenades. Kestrel monitored engine parameters with obsessive attention, watching for any sign that her resurrected power plant might falter when they needed it most. The turbine temperatures held steady, fuel flow remained optimal, but she knew that combat had a way of finding weaknesses that peaceful flight never revealed. "30 seconds to insertion," Davidson announced, his voice steady despite the controlled violence they were flying toward. Below them, the compound's ruins grew larger through night vision displays, thermal imaging revealing human figures moving with increasing urgency between shattered walls and collapsed doorways. "Sparrow, we're coming in hot," Vasquez transmitted. "Be ready to move on my signal. You'll have maybe 10 seconds to reach the aircraft before things get interesting." The understatement carried dark humor that masked genuine concern. Extraction under fire was among the most dangerous operations in military aviation, requiring perfect coordination between ground and air elements. Kestrel plugged into the intercom system, her voice reaching every crew member simultaneously. "Listen to her heartbeat," she said, referring to the engines with the intimacy of someone who just rebuilt their mechanical souls. "If she starts to complain, I need to know immediately. We're asking for everything she's got tonight." The Blackhawk flared behind the ruined mosque exactly as planned, its nose rising sharply as collective pitch translated forward momentum into controlled descent. Through the aircraft's open doors, muzzle flashes erupted from multiple positions as enemy forces opened fire, their tracer rounds painting deadly geometries across the night sky. "Taking fire from the northwest building," called out Sergeant Rico, the left door gunner, his voice calm despite bullets snapping past his position. "Engaging with suppressive fire." His M240 machine gun chattered in controlled bursts, sending tracers toward enemy positions while brass casings cascaded onto the aircraft's metal floor. Commander Vasquez fought the aircraft's controls as auto-rotation threatened to transform their controlled descent into an uncontrolled crash. The Blackhawk shuddered under the impact of small arms fire, metal-on-metal impacts ringing like deadly hail against the fuselage. But Kestrel's engine continued its steady song, power flowing uninterrupted despite the chaos erupting around them. "Sparrow's moving," Davidson reported, thermal imaging tracking a single figure sprinting across open ground toward their landing zone. Behind him, muzzle flashes multiplied as enemy forces realized their quarry was escaping, automatic weapons fire intensifying with desperate fury. The asset dove through the Blackhawk's door as bullets shattered the air around him, his body hitting the aircraft's floor with desperate relief. "Go, go, go," he shouted, but Vasquez was already pulling collective pitch, demanding maximum power from engines that responded with mechanical perfection. "Taking RPG fire," Rico announced with professional calm, watching a rocket-propelled grenade streak past their tail boom in a trail of flame and smoke. The enemy was escalating their response, bringing heavy weapons to bear as the aircraft climbed away from the compound's deadly embrace. But Kestrel's resurrection had held. The engine she'd rebuilt with her own hands continued providing the power needed to carry them clear of the kill zone, its mechanical voice singing with the confidence of perfect maintenance performed under impossible conditions. As they gained altitude and distance, the compound's lights faded into desert darkness, leaving behind only the memory of violence and the satisfaction of mission accomplished. "Nightfall 1, Phoenix Base," crackled through their headsets. "Beautiful work. Assets secured, all personnel accounted for. You are cleared direct to home base." The radio call carried congratulations earned through courage and competence displayed under the ultimate pressure. In the aircraft's red-lit interior, Sparrow sat with his back against the bulkhead, breathing heavily but alive, his 2 years of intelligence work preserved by 18 souls who refused to abandon him to enemy vengeance. 8 minutes out from the compound, flying through air that tasted of sand and freedom, the Blackhawk's steady rhythm was interrupted by a subtle change in engine harmonics that made Kestrel's blood run cold. The turbine she'd rebuilt was developing a vibration pattern that spoke of mechanical stress pushed beyond safe limits, components beginning to fail under the demands of combat maneuvering and maximum power settings. "Commander," she said quietly, her voice cutting through post-mission celebration with the authority of someone who spoke fluent machine language. "We need to reduce power settings. The engine's telling me she gave everything she had back there, and now she's asking for mercy." Vasquez felt the aircraft's subtle changes through her hands and feet, the way mechanical harmony shifted toward discord as stressed components began singing different songs. In her peripheral vision, warning lights began illuminating with amber caution, then red urgency as system parameters crept toward dangerous territories. "How much time do we have?" she asked, already calculating distance to friendly airspace against the engine's deteriorating condition. The mathematics were unforgiving. They were still deep in hostile territory, with nearly an hour of flight time remaining before reaching the safety of their forward operating base. Kestrel studied diagnostic displays with the focused intensity of a physician reading vital signs from a dying patient. Oil pressure was dropping, turbine temperatures climbing, and vibration levels approaching the red line that separated controlled flight from catastrophic failure. But beneath the mechanical stress, she could still sense the engine's fundamental strength, the repairs she'd made holding despite loads far beyond their design specifications. "She'll get us home," Kestrel said finally, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who just negotiated with mechanical death and found terms both sides could accept. "But we need to treat her gently. Reduce power to cruise settings, avoid aggressive maneuvering, and pray to whatever gods watch over rebuilt engines." The flight became a delicate balance between speed and survival, each mile gained at the cost of mechanical, where that couldn't be replaced or repaired until they reached base maintenance facilities. Around them, the desert stretched endlessly, its hostile beauty illuminated by starlight and the growing conviction that they were living through something that would be remembered long after official reports were filed and forgotten. "Sparrow's got some interesting stories," Davidson commented, glancing back at their rescued asset who was finally beginning to relax as distance accumulated between them and the compound's violence. 2 years of deep cover work had left visible marks, the hypervigilance of someone who'd lived constantly on the edge of discovery, the quiet competence of a professional intelligence operative who'd survived in environments where mistakes meant death. But it was Kestrel who held Vasquez's attention, this mysterious technician who'd appeared from nowhere to perform mechanical miracles under impossible deadlines. Her hands remained constantly in motion, adjusting engine parameters with surgical precision, listening to subtle changes in harmonics that spoke of metal fatigue and thermal stress. "Where did you learn to work magic like that?" Vasquez asked, referencing both the impossible repair and the ongoing mechanical coaxing that was keeping them airborne despite combat damage and overextended systems. Kestrel's smile carried memories of childhood lessons learned in dusty hangars from a father who'd understood that aircraft were living entities deserving respect and care. "Some things can't be taught," she replied. "They have to be inherited, passed down from one generation to the next like family recipes or lullabies." The engine continued its labored song, each rotation carrying them closer to safety, while components stressed beyond their design limits held together through faith, skill, and the mysterious alchemy that sometimes allowed broken things to transcend their limitations. 23 minutes from base, flying through air that carried the promise of safety and hot meals, the rebuilt engine finally surrendered to the inevitable mathematics of mechanical failure. The turbine that had carried them this far began its death song, oil pressure dropping toward zero, while temperatures climbed into ranges that meant imminent catastrophic failure. "Auto-rotation," Vasquez announced calmly, her hands moving across controls with the practiced precision of someone who'd trained for this moment throughout her entire career. The healthy engine would keep them flying, but at reduced power settings that eliminated any margin for error during their approach to base. Kestrel was already on the radio, her voice cutting through standard communication protocols with the urgency of someone reporting mechanical crisis to maintenance crews who needed every second of preparation time. "Tower, Nightfall 1 declaring emergency. Single engine failure, auto-rotation to runway 27. Request crash and rescue standing by." The response was immediate and professional. "Nightfall 1, runway 27 cleared for emergency approach. Crash crews rolling, medical standing by. Wind 040 at 12 knots." Around their destination airfield, emergency vehicles erupted into motion, their flashing lights painting abstract art across taxiways and ramp areas. Through her side window, Vasquez could see their destination, a collection of lights that represented safety, maintenance facilities, and the expertise needed to properly repair combat damage that field-expedient methods couldn't address. But between their current position and those welcoming lights lay the most dangerous phase of any emergency, the single-engine approach that would test every skill she developed as a pilot. "Gear down, flaps set for approach," Davidson called out, his voice steady despite the mechanical emergency unfolding around them. The Blackhawk descended through layers of desert air with the heavy grace of an aircraft operating at the edge of its performance envelope, each foot of altitude carefully traded for forward progress towards salvation. Kestrel monitored the surviving engine with obsessive attention, watching parameters dance along the edge of acceptable limits, while her rebuilt powerplant finally seized completely, its death marked by silence where mechanical harmony had reigned for critical hours. The aircraft was now committed to its glide path, success or failure determined by physics, skill, and the accumulated weight of decisions made throughout a night that had tested everyone involved. "Base in sight," Vasquez announced, seeing runway lights stretching like a welcoming corridor through the darkness. Around the airfield's perimeter, crash vehicles positioned themselves with professional efficiency, their crews preparing for whatever outcome the next few minutes might deliver. The approach proceeded with textbook precision, Vasquez's hands and feet working in perfect coordination to maintain airspeed and glide path despite operating with half their normal power. Beside her, Davidson called out altitude and speed with metronomic regularity, each update confirming their steady progress toward successful conclusion of a mission that had redefined the boundaries of possible. As the Blackhawk's wheels touched runway concrete with the gentlest kiss of successful emergency landing, 18 souls released breath they hadn't realized they were holding. The aircraft rolled to a stop surrounded by emergency vehicles, whose flashing lights painted celebration across the desert night, marking the end of a mission that would be remembered for reasons that transcended routine success. In the sudden quiet that followed engine shutdown, Kestrel's voice cut through post-mission euphoria with words that acknowledged the mechanical miracle they'd just witnessed. She kept her promise, brought everyone home alive. The ramp at Forward Operating Base Artemis buzzed with controlled chaos as maintenance crews swarmed over the damaged Blackhawk, their flashlights and diagnostic equipment painting moving shadows across bullet-scarred metal. Commander Vasquez stood beside the aircraft, debriefing with intelligence officers while Sparrow disappeared into the secure facilities where his 2 years of gathered information would be processed, analyzed, and transformed into actionable intelligence. But the real focus of attention was the slight figure moving through post-flight procedures with mechanical precision, Kestrel's hands performing the sacred rituals that marked the end of combat operations. She documented battle damage with photographers' attention to detail, cataloging each bullet hole and stress crack with the professional competence of someone who understood that aircraft were living entities deserving proper medical attention. "Jesus Christ," muttered Senior Chief Martinez, running calloused fingers along the engine cowling where Kestrel's field repairs had held together despite thermal stress that should have destroyed any temporary fix. "I've been working on these birds for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. She literally brought the dead back to life." Around him, younger mechanics nodded with the awed respect reserved for witnessing the impossible. The engine that had been written off as scrap metal now revealed itself as a masterpiece of field-expedient engineering, components repaired and reinforced through methods that challenged everything they'd learned in technical schools and factory training programs. "Where'd she learn to work like that?" asked Corporal Stevens, a recent aviation maintenance school graduate whose textbook knowledge suddenly seemed inadequate compared to the practical wizardry he'd just witnessed. His question echoed through the hangar like an incantation, drawing attention to the mysterious technician who'd somehow transcended the normal boundaries between possible and impossible. Kestrel looked up from her damage assessment, grease-stained coveralls and tired eyes marking her as someone who'd just completed work that would be discussed in maintenance shops for years to come. "My father taught me that every aircraft has a soul," she said simply, her words carrying the weight of inherited wisdom, passed down through generations of people who understood that machines were more than mere collections of parts. "But this," Martinez gestured helplessly at diagnostic readings that shouldn't exist, performance parameters that violated engineering textbooks. "This isn't just maintenance. This is something else entirely. This is art." The compliment brought a smile to Kestrel's face, genuine warmth breaking through professional reserve for the first time since she'd emerged from beneath the aircraft's belly hours earlier. Around her, mechanics who'd initially dismissed her as just another anonymous technician now regarded her with the reverence usually reserved for legendary figures whose exploits lived in squadron folklore. "Everyone did their job tonight," she replied, deflecting individual recognition toward team accomplishment with the grace of someone who understood that combat success belonged to everyone who contributed to mission completion. The aircraft held together because everyone did their part perfectly when it mattered most. But even as she spoke, Word was spreading through the base's informal communication networks, the stories that traveled faster than official reports, carrying news of impossible repairs performed under impossible conditions. By dawn, every mechanic, pilot, and crew chief would know about the mysterious technician who'd resurrected dead engines through pure determination and mechanical empathy. Commander Vasquez approached through the hangar's controlled chaos, her flight suit still bearing dust from their emergency landing and the satisfaction of mission accomplished. "Chief," she said, using the informal address that acknowledged expertise over rank, "I owe you that salute I promised. Without your work, Sparrow would be dead, and we'd probably be joining him." The formal recognition meant more than any official citation, coming from a combat veteran whose respect was earned rather than given. Around them, maintenance crews paused in their work to witness this acknowledgement of extraordinary performance, understanding that they were witnessing history being written in real time. In the distance, dawn was beginning to paint the eastern horizon with subtle colors that marked the end of night operations and the beginning of another day in humanity's endless struggle against darkness. The morning briefing in Operations Center Alpha carried an electric undercurrent of excitement as word spread about the previous night's impossible mission. Major Collins, the base operations officer, stood before assembled aircrews with the satisfied expression of someone delivering news that would be remembered long after routine reports were forgotten and filed away in archives that no one would ever read. Nightfall 1's extraction was successful, he announced, his voice carrying across the briefing room where pilots, mechanics, and support personnel had gathered to hear first-hand accounts of operations that had already achieved legendary status. Asset recovered, all personnel returned safely, 0 friendly casualties despite heavy enemy contact. But the real story lived in the details that wouldn't appear in official after-action reports. The mechanical resurrection performed by invisible hands, the single-engine approach that had tested every skill Commander Vasquez possessed, and the quiet competence of someone who'd transformed mission failure into triumphant success through pure determination and inherited wisdom. The aircraft sustained significant battle damage, Collins continued, referencing photographs that displayed bullet holes and stress fractures across vital components. But preliminary assessment indicates that field repairs performed prior to departure were instrumental in mission success. The maintenance officer responsible has been recommended for commendation. In the back of the briefing room, Kestrel sat with characteristic anonymity, her presence noted only by those who'd witnessed her work firsthand. She wore clean coveralls now, grease stains replaced by professional appearance, but her eyes retained the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd just proven that sometimes miracles emerged from mechanical understanding and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "Who is she?" whispered Lieutenant Morrison, a recent pilot training graduate whose textbook knowledge of aircraft systems suddenly seemed inadequate compared to the practical wizardry he'd heard described by multiple witnesses. His question echoed through the assembled crews like ripples spreading across still water. The answer came from Senior Chief Martinez, his voice carrying the authority of 15 years spent coaxing performance from machinery that lived constantly on the edge of mechanical failure. "Chief Warrant Officer Kestrel Thorne," he said, and even speaking her name seemed to invest it with significance that transcended normal military identification. "Never heard of her," Morrison replied, confusion evident in his voice. In the small world of military aviation, reputation traveled fast and achievements were quickly cataloged in the informal networks that connected aircrews across time zones and operational theaters. But Kestrel existed in the spaces between recognition, valuable precisely because she remained unseen. "That's the point," Martinez explained, understanding finally beginning to crystallize in his expression. "She's been here the whole time, working in the shadows, keeping aircraft flying while everyone else worried about glory and recognition. How many times do you think she saved lives without anyone knowing her name? The realization spread through the briefing room like dawn breaking over hostile territory, illuminating truths that,